This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV, it's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
You are tuned in to the Foul Weather Podcast, the forecast to your next successful hunt. Coming to you from the home office, Jack's Reef, New York.
We jump on a call with Chris Nicolai, scientist with Delta Waterfowl Foundation, this week to talk all things ducks on the prairies. Chris pontificates about what prairie conditions looked like for duck production. What's North Dakota looking like for duck hunting as well? That, and we have a great forecast for ducks on the move for the coming week. What species and where will be migrating? Where will it be hot and where will it not? All today on the Foul Weather Podcast. Remember that you can use your Foul Weather 2024 discount code to get 10% off from Northern Latitude Foods. That's Foul Weather 2024. So get you some wild rice to go with that duck dinner this coming season. This stuff is some of the most robust, flavored wild rice we've ever tasted. That code, FOWL, WEATHER 2024 for 10% off from Latitude Foods. Also remember that you can find waterfowl season information for every state and province at our one-stop shop at foulweather.co/seasons. That's foulweather.co/seasons for all the information for every state and province about when and where waterfowl seasons are open. We thank our every week listeners. You know who you are. Those that never miss a single migration forecast episode each Monday morning. We appreciate y'all very, very much. Y'all are as ate up as me about ducks, duck biology, and duck migration. You know where the ducks are at before the ducks know where they're at. Think about that. You know where the ducks are at before the ducks know where they are at. Our dedicated weekly listeners can pick the best days to hunt because the Foul Weather Podcast forecasts fresh ducks hot from the north. Shoot the ducks from the north before they know where they're at. I'm your host, Dr. Mike, coming to you from the home office in Jack's Reef. Wow, what an amazing duck opener on Saturday for us. My wife and I scouted with our dogs on Friday afternoon at the refuge where we had our reservation. And then on Saturday morning, we got drawn first out of about 25 parties, which has never happened. We've actually been drawn last twice when we've been there. My buddy also had a reservation, and he was also hunting with us, so got a draw number as well. And before we could even turn his chip in, because I'd already gotten drawn and picked a spot, he got chosen second. Crazy odds, right? So we turned his chip in so that someone in the pour line, or just the folks without reservations that are drawn against everybody, they keep some remaining spots open so that somebody else could have an additional spot to get out on an opener. The spot we picked was emergent marsh with mostly cattail and burr reed, little cover really to hide in. It was tough to hide in the wind, and with the wind direction, our hide made it so we had to kind of look into the sun. But we had about 14 birds in the bag before the sun really gave us trouble. Baby Jaeger, our little pocket lab with the liver issue, was absolutely amazing. She dug a bunch of cripples out of the cattails. But we did learn a lesson. And maybe some people can take some lessons away from this too, from us. The air temperature was warm. We were actually in the 50s, but the water wasn't. And we didn't put her vest on, and she did get cold near the end. But 18 retrieves for a little pocket lab in that thick vegetation, wasn't easy. So little lesson there, check that water temperature. And sometimes when it feels warm to you, it might not be warm, especially if your dog has to stay in the water on long retrieves. So maybe put that vest on them to help them stay warm. And then if they get overheated, heck, you can take it off, right? But if you leave it back at the truck, it's kind of hard to put back on. So We ended up with 6 species, black duck, mallard, widgeon, pintail, gadwall, and wood ducks. So just a great shoot. And again, New York, right? So lots of folks don't think of us as a waterfowling destination, but we're not half bad. Parts of the Atlantic Flyway do kind of work out once in a while. It takes a lot of homework. It's not like you can just show up like some places, but we've got ducks over this way too. So on the way out of the marsh, I noted to my buddy how much, burreed seed there was sitting on the surface. I talked to him about what the burreed kind of odd flower and the seeds kind of look like kernels of corn and about the size of kernel of corn, and they float on the surface for a while. So a lot of feathers in there, but there were no ducks in there when we went in the morning. So they were probably day roosting in that vegetation and also getting a bite to eat at the same time from that burreed. Check out our Instagram and Facebook reels for a look at the pre-shooting kind of flight that happened. It's pretty awesome stuff. I don't know. My buddy said he's never seen that many birds in the air, prior to shooting light. So it's pretty cool stuff. So check those reels out on Instagram and Facebook. Just a short, maybe 30-second clip that we put up. And the sound is awesome. I think you can hear about 4 or 5 different species buzzing around. Before we jump in with Chris Nicolai, we want to also clear something up that my wife noted from the last episode about our 7-year-old lab Jaeger that I was just talking about. She actually did have copper storage disease. I improperly noted that she did not have copper storage disease, and we likely fixed that through chelation with prescription pills, but she also seems to have some ongoing liver disease issues. Copper storage disease is most common in female yellow labs and can only be definitively diagnosed well with a liver biopsy, which we did. The chelation then got her ALT values, or those values that show liver disease. It got those values down, but not quite yet into the normal range. Then it started to spike again. We consulted with our veterinarian and landed on an autoimmune disorder that may have started with the copper storage disease, or it could be separate. They can't really tell. Anyhow, we're working through the steps necessary to treat her best we can. To our listeners, I'd recommend getting a senior blood panel on your hunting dog around age 6, just to see what all those values are and to check that they're in the normal range. And if not, adjust course as per your veterinarian's recommendations. It's something you might be able to catch early and extend your dog's life and not go through some really tough times with a sick dog. So I'd get after that. It can't hurt, and it doesn't cost much to get that blood panel of your hunting dog around age 6, especially if they're yellow lab females, because they seem to be most susceptible. Hopefully that helps somebody out in the future. Next, we jump in with Dr. Chris Nicolai to talk prairie ducks, so please stick with us.
Hold on, folks. Don't turn that channel. We've got some really exciting news for you. The Foul Weather Podcast has teamed up with Wildlife Strategies. That's right. I'm now working directly with Ryan Delaney of Wildlife Strategies to build value into your land. Wildlife Strategies is already known for quality wildlife habitat management, be it deer, turkeys, ducks, or whatever you pursue. Ryan knows his stuff. Look, I don't add my name to just any business, but I believe in what Wildlife Strategies is doing for landowners throughout the Southeast U.S. and beyond. If you want science-based solutions to create great wildlife habitat, Wildlife Strategies is your best bet. If you're interested in ducks, when we say may your skies be filled, well, Wildlife Strategies does just that. They fill your skies with ducks. Contact Ryan Delaney today at ryan@farmlg.com for a site visit. You won't be disappointed you did. Ryan covers the southern tier of states, and I'm available to build habitat management plans across the northern tier. Contact us today for a quote. The Wildlife Strategies team sees your property through from the initial assessment and development of a 3-year time frame management plan through annual check-ins and course corrections as needed. Contact Ryan today at ryan@farmlg.com or Dr. Mike at foulweather.co. You won't be disappointed you did. Fill your skies with ducks and your forests and fields with deer and turkey with Wildlife Strategies.
So we got Chris Nicolai, somebody you've probably heard of before, scientist with Delta Waterfowl Foundation, joining us today quickly from his Bismarck office in North Dakota to give us an update on prairie conditions, what the end of summer looked like. I think a lot of us know that at least we got some water, but what the end of summer looked like and how migration has or has not progressed so far. Those of you that have been in North Dakota or in that part of the prairies know we've been, in the high 70s and even 80s. So, Chris, thanks for being with us and bringing kind of local North Dakota prairie information to the podcast. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, no, it's my first time on your podcast. So thanks for reaching out.
Yeah, we just did this kind of quick this morning, and it sounds like you drove into the office and had a few decoy discussions with folks on the way. So I just sat on the line and waited for you, but it's going to be a good discussion here. So really appreciate you giving the local prairie insight. So why don't you start with like kind of how the real quick, the spring and summer progressed and what you saw for productivity locally.
Yeah, I mean, spring in the Dakotas started pretty decent. Not bad, not horrible. Things chugged along, and then the day after the May surveys stopped, the rains came in droves and basically didn't stop, probably till early August, if I remember right. And so we're in really good shape here. I mean, there's type 1, type 2 wetlands that still existed till 3 or 4 weeks ago that, were well up into crops and well up into flooded drains. I mean, it was beautiful, beautiful brood habitat. But boy, you get up into Prairie, Canada, and they never got that. They went into it in very dire straits. And it's better in Manitoba, but Saskatchewan and Alberta is just catastrophic.
Yeah.
As we saw with the BPOP counts, you look at those the southern parts of those 3 provinces were like 43 to 48% below the long-term average for mallard counts. I mean,
when you don't have water, there's no place to settle.
I don't think we've ever reported numbers that low below the long-term average. It's crazy, but it was, maybe the middle of June that Alberta and Western Saskatchewan got a series of really good shots in the arm that some people were saying, it was the wettest they've seen in 8 years, but it went away really quick. And, we saw our nest searching crews saw it, they got a bump in duck numbers being found. They found broods, but I'd be willing to bet that water didn't last long enough to really fledge that bump in duckling or in nest,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You guys had flooding actually in like downtown Bismarck and stuff, or at least the residential areas around it. I saw a few times too.
Yeah, but those are just weird, very like my house. I live 8 miles south of town. We didn't get a drop of rain. There's funky, isolated downpours that put their crosshairs right on the spark. So
folks coming out and hunting, one of the things I heard is a lot of these cattail kind of rimmed areas, like the water, at least it was. Now we've gotten a bit dry, right? And we'll talk about that here in a second. But it sounded like a lot of the potholes with kind of cattail rims might, be so inundated that they'd be tough to hunt with all that cattail around the edge. Is that something you're kind of seeing out on the landscape? I think it was Hagee that told me that a few weeks ago when I was at a meeting with him in South Carolina. There was that, there might be some places that are inaccessible to hunters and kind of focus on more of those, class 2s type thing where the little shallower stuff that's gotten water. But you seem to be tilting your head here, so maybe I'm off base.
No, I think you're describing it all fine. I just like the comment inaccessible to hunters. I'd say inaccessible to hunters wearing hip boots.
Right, for sure. Yeah.
And you got chest waders and go a little further, and then come on, just be a superior duck hunter. If you're going to hit the wet stuff, take a boat, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'd say, that follows right up with what I was, Heath and I have actually had a couple chances to chit chat lately. And, I'd say it's exactly what was happening till a month ago. And then it's been hot and dry. Like since duck opener, we have set 2 daily heat records, including a temperature of 97 degrees. And both of those days also, the first one came, I think, was 94, and the second one was 97. Those are the hottest days of our year. This friggin' late. I mean, nuts. Like I don't I don't want to sit there. Like I ban ducks and do stuff where we're happy as heck in August to stomp into the water and cool down. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want that when I'm hunting.
Right. Right.
I like wearing my hunting clothes.
Yeah, it sounds like people have still been having success. Like folks
People have
are
been smacking them.
folks are hitting geese in Saskatchewan, and I think North Dakota duck shooting's been good. I mean, brown ducks, not your favorite, right?
Yeah, and the geese, the Arctic geese, keep in mind they're very late this year. It's really cool listening to everybody, and there's a lot
Hmm.
of people that love the opening day in Canada, which I don't understand. And unless you want to shoot hawkers and mallards, that's fine. But if you're wanting to shoot migrant birds, you're way too early in a
Mm-hmm.
normal year. And this
Mm-hmm.
year, you are way, way, way too early. And with all the radios that are out now and just social media, those geese, let's see, I'm thinking that today's Wednesday. I'm thinking 2.5 weeks ago is when these birds really started pouring in over the boreal, which
Hmm.
is a week and a half later than normal.
So if you were going to go this year, I am leaving on next Tuesday. I'm going to be out there on the 16th and hunt through about the 23rd-ish or so, I think. Whatever my 7-day period is as a non-resident. And last year there was a snowstorm around the 20th because my wife was stuck in Williston airport trying to get back east. Doesn't look like anything close to that's coming this year, but if you had, this is the thing though, right? Is it's different for you, right? If I said to you, Chris, when's your ideal time to hunt? It's going to be different because you can take the risk of saying later, right? Where a lot of folks that are traveling from out of state that are coming to North Dakota, I think come early just because of the fear of a weather event that is something that's difficult to travel in, possibly get you stuck there, or does something to the birds. I mean, I remember being in northeast South Dakota. Those ducks didn't leave till Thanksgiving that year I was there. That was 98, I think, 99 maybe. But when that weather came, I mean, it came fast and it shut everything down and created a blizzard. So a little bit about maybe what your best time you think is going to be this year, and maybe your recommendation with like a wide swath of dates for non-residents.
Yeah, well, I think the big thing there is what defines a good duck hunt for people.
Mm-hmm.
Is it there's a billion different things. Is it, well, my state doesn't open until this date, and after that date, I want to be home. So that, cuts off a lot of the later season. I hear that one a lot. Some
Mm-hmm.
people just want to fill their freezers with gadwall and blue-winged teal breasts. That's fine. So come early then. They're abundant, they're naive, they breed right here. But then, like for me, I like a nice, pretty picture before I pluck it and grill it.
Yep.
And so I like a nice, pretty bird. So like I've hardly even thrown decoys out yet because just mold's so far behind. So everyone has different things. So if you want big kill piles coming early is probably fine. If you want even bigger kill piles sometimes with some pretty birds in it, you come later. But yeah, the later you come, it's just a gamble. I mean, I
Right.
can remember when I first started hunting Saskatchewan in the early 90s, you were going to get ice and snow the second week of October.
Right. Right.
Like it
Yeah.
was miserable some years. Where now, I mean, God, if now that I live here, I can run up to Saskatchewan the second, maybe third week of November now. Not every year, but
Yeah.
when that conditions come, it's like everyone was ice fishing, well into ice fishing by now.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So yeah, I'd say there's a lot more variability, and it's all what you're looking for, which actually helps. It's gonna spread people out more because we're definitely, what weekend I think it is this next 2 weeks that you're hitting are the big non-resident weeks. Next door neighbor Minnesota has a big 4-day weekend, all that stuff. So it's always
Yeah.
traditionally these 2 weeks are the big
Well,
bulks.
pheasant opens too, and so I think there's some folks thinking about that. Although you
Can't
can't
hunt them as a
you
non-resident.
can't you can't hunt them on plots and
True.
fishing game.
Yeah.
So waterfowl production areas, federal land's fine, or private land, right?
Yep.
So which is not that easy to always find what you want. So it does
Pheasant's a
provide
big
some
deal
limitation. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's impressive. I had no idea before I moved here that it was this big of a deal.
Well, we're gonna hopefully get the pups, the yellow labs on, lots of different diverse birds. So what are the sharptails looking like this year?
That's what I've been having fun with my kids is grouse. We're finding really good numbers. But I was talking with a colleague yesterday that swung by, and she was actually saying she thought they were down. So I don't know.
Huh.
I guess spotty would be good, but we've seen plenty of them.
It's all perspective, I think, right? And I love shooting them. The first chance I got was in Montana, and kind of one of my favorite new birds to hunt. So pheasants, man, some people get jazzed about them, but not so much myself. So I like my native birds if I can get them. But it's
Yep.
not like they don't eat well.
Nope, pheasants are easy, but yeah, like this weekend we were driving around good. We saw 4 species upland birds. You got to keep in mind only one of which is native, and so it's
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm right with you. Definitely give a way more appreciation to native birds. Granted, we're not dealing with anything invasive by any means, but I
Right.
just like giving a little bit more love to the birds that belong here full tilt.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. So back to the waterfall stuff. Is it kind of right now where we're in this period where there's a mix of migrants, as long as we get some more maybe cold up north, because you're still, well away from freezing, but next week starts to look like a freeze. Are you in that period where, birds getting towards the end of the month are starting to get some color to them? You got geese showing up. It's kind of starting to be a good mix of stuff, and then early on November, mid-November, things really shine. Is that kind of the progression that you see coming this year?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, there's still like even last week, this hot spell we had went all the way up and well up the west coast of Hudson Bay. I mean, there's
Yeah.
no rush. That there's a lot of ducks in that country all summer long that have not heard the time to leave bell at all. And so it's still coming. I mean, yeah, friends of mine in the Alaska Peninsula are saying, "Oh my God, we've never had so many pintails still." So there's lots of stuff.
It's
There's cranes.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's so hard when I look. So I'm doing Pacific Flyway Weather Severity Index stuff now on the podcast, which we've never done before. So I always ask people, "Hey, send me what you're seeing." And it's hard for me to look at Alaska and go, "Okay, these index values aren't great enough to push mallards and pintails out yet of that, kind of peninsula area." In my gut, I'm like, this shouldn't be. They should be moving by now. They should be farther south. But my numbers are saying they aren't. And what you're saying is that I should trust the numbers on the data sheet in front of me when I crunch them, I guess.
Well, yeah, but you got to keep Alaska's way different than the Atlantic coast. I mean,
Right.
like you've got an endemic. This is another one for people that count how many waterfowl species there are in North America. There's the one that everybody forgets about is the Aleutian green-winged teal.
Mm.
It is a congener with Asian green wings, not North Americans. So what are they? Anis creca, where ours are Anis carolinensis. So, and they don't move. They sit in the Aleutians. A green winged teal. I mean, that's how good it is. I
Really?
mean,
Yeah.
we'll shoot widgeon, pintails, not abundance, but we'll shoot plenty of them in January. So yeah, and then you get into the huge, the
Well, and
Pacific.
that's why we stayed away from it, Chris, is that the Pacific is just wonky. It's not like this north-south progression of weather that moves things. And you got birds crossing the continental divide coming out of the prairies and going towards California and such. But then also, if you look at the harvest derivation that was done, that was Todd Arnold and some of his students, I think Sabrina, somebody. I apologize for not getting that right now for folks out there.
That's his wife.
Oh man, now I'm really embarrassed. Okay. Anyhow, the harvest derivation for the Pacific Flyway just shows that so many of those birds they're harvesting are homegrown too. And some of that might having to do a little bit with banding bias and things like that, but it's kind of hard to predict what your hunt's going to be like because it's not as much about maybe what's showing up, but what the weather does locally that pushes things around. So
100%.
in So our models are meant for everything from the Central Flyway east for the most part, but I figured I'd throw it in there and do our best with what weather is going on to the north, and then have people, tell us if we're crazy or not as to what, they're seeing on the ground. So we're giving it a try. Let's call it a beta test at this point.
Hey, I'm happy to get any. I think the West is so cool because it just contrasts everything we think about the Eastern three flyways. I mean, come on, 107-day season, 7 bird bags, 7 wood duck limits, 7 Drake mallard limits. I mean, this blows the minds of anyone from Eastern
Yeah.
three flyways. Or, you have to take a 50-question test to identify 7 kinds of white-cheeked geese because one of them is illegal to shoot at.
Yeah. No,
You know,
the diversity is awesome. And that's where you and I come from, totally different cultures, where I'm, the redheaded stepchild over here in the Atlantic Flyway that everybody thinks is a dumpster fire, and half the time it is. And you're from a place that has 107-day seasons, and, that diversity is just awesome. So it's quite a difference, and hard for us way out east to grasp as well. I mean, I said the other day I was down in South Carolina looking at the plants, Chris, and the birds down there, and just felt so far from home. I can go anywhere in the Mississippi drainage and anywhere in the Great Lakes and feel like I'm at home. The wetland plants are kind of similar. The birds are kind of similar, but there's certain places in this continent that I just haven't spent enough time in. And I think it's hard to do that, right? It's hard to live in all these flyways. I think you can move north south, but to travel all the way from the east all the way west and have that full comprehension of all that in a career gets difficult because they're very different places, and so there's a big learning curve. It'd be like you coming all the way to the Atlantic Flyway and trying to figure out our game. It is a little different over here.
Yeah, and I've gotten experiences. I'll be doing it again this winter, and it's fun, but it's a difference between coordinating things or being the principal investigator. You look at all the gurus that have had these massive field sites, like talk with Ray Alisoskas, how many Arctic field camps he's been to. His list is pretty short because he put his heart and soul into just a couple of them right near and dear to him.
Yep.
He just didn't have time, especially something like that that's so synchronous. I mean, all the Arctic geese in the world are hatching in a 20-day period.
Yeah.
You don't get much time to go do it, So yeah, being more of a coordinator role allows you to go see these places, which I don't know, I've had a lot of fun with.
Yeah, no, and you guys at Delta have done an amazing job of kind of spreading that love around and ensuring that you're kind of looking out for the interests of all the flyways and really knocking on the door of that science that's needed for hunters and hunter participation and all that stuff. So applaud what you do, and that's not just me sucking up because we get some funding from you. It's a really honest comment about the organization in general, and how you're functioning now to distribute the love across the flyways. And that, as you said, as scientists for Delta Waterfowl, gets you to interact with folks, across the continent, which is pretty cool.
That's one of my favorite parts of the job is I don't know who's going to call next. Is it going to be you? Is it going to be someone from Alaska Fish and Game? Is it going to be someone from Nevada? Someone from Florida? I mean, I just love the breadth of my position. It's really cool.
Yeah, no, awesome stuff. Hey, we're going to end this because I'm trying to make these shorter this time of year because people want to get to that migration forecast I do at the end of it, and they don't want to wait 45 minutes for it. Chris, you and I, we've been on the phone a lot. We could talk forever, and I'm sure I'll get you back on here. And maybe we'll hit some hot button stuff and let us kind of fire away back and forth a little bit. I like this conversation, about habitat and productivity and things. It's kind of the lighter side, I think, maybe of some of the deeper science stuff we work on. But what do you think this coming winter holds if we get cold and snowpack? Are we still set up going into it pretty well so that if we got a February, March, blizzard, would it help set conditions up? Or do you think we're still a few years out from refreshing portions of the prairie?
No, I think we are as well poised for holding water as we can be. Now we're not at flood stage, but we're just back down a little bit. Our soil moisture is very high right now. And even, like I was saying, those storms that Saskatchewan got in like June and July, eastern Alberta helped fill those soil pores a little bit, so when runoff does come, it ain't going to be like North Dakota 2 springs ago. I mean, we were, a quarter of an inch from the all-time deepest snow, and I never saw a puddle nor a rivulet, no erosion, nothing. I mean, it should have been ripping torrents. It all just went straight into the dirt. My yard was dusty all spring.
Yeah.
So
we've reset that soil moisture. Now what we need, that's where this La Nina cold, even if you just get the cold, it's not going to be horrible. But my expectation is that maybe not Alberta, maybe not Saskatchewan, but like Manitoba, North Dakota, South Dakota, western side of Minnesota, I would put money on a late February, March kind of, blizzard thing that's going to drop at least snow in some of that portion, hopefully the Coteau.
Western Minnesota
and reset it.
Dry right now.
What is?
Western Minnesota.
Is it? Yeah, the rain kind of stopped almost. Well, wait, they got hammered all summer long, didn't they? Too, or not?
I could have swore I was just seeing some drought severity stuff, and that whole Moorhead, Crookston, up that area, back over the Red River Valley was not in the best shape.
Okay,
could be wrong.
Okay.
And it's a pretty small. It's not a duck production mecca by any means, but I don't going into winter with ponds beyond their boundaries would be awesome. But
right.
We were there a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was that recent, and then all of a sudden, this heat dry wave just kicked in. So we're this close to being saturated.
Way back when, it was like our preseason primer. My comment was, once hurricane season, God bless those people in Florida. My goodness, I'm praying for them. Once hurricane season cranked up, you guys would get dry. And that's typically kind of the cycle that happens, is that when the southeast and Atlantic coast gets wet with hurricanes, you guys go dry for about a month period. But I think as soon as hurricane season is done, you're going to get your snow is going to crank up. And it might not be till January or February, but as long as it comes at some point, and those, you get the cold to lock in that moisture is what you need. And then, hey, you've seen it. Maybe not since you've been there, but you've heard about it at least. It takes one good blizzard to reset this stuff. So,
well, we've had lots of discussions here. Our friend Mike Anto over in Jamestown and a bunch of others, and they're really pushing, showing the data that, delivery of moisture in the prairies comes different timing and in different forms. And it's kind of like out west too. It's not snowpack driven anymore.
Right. Yeah, it's a cumulative thing, right? It's cumulative. It's soil moisture. It's locking that moisture in, and then having that good ice cap so that the frost cap so that the water flows into those basins and stays there.
That's how it used to be. Yep. Yeah. And now, like this year, the most ducks and the most wetlands were a month later than what we did. Like I said, it was all after the survey occurred. Yeah. And it all came from rainfall in late May.
Yeah. Well, Chris, let's hope that we have continued, quality conditions across at least a portion of the prairies to continue to produce ducks for us at, all the latitudes. And let's hope we get this good weather. I'm hoping for some cold, at least when I'm up there to see y'all. So appreciate you being on, Chris, and for all you do with Delta and supporting students and science and, everything duck hunters and ducks. So thanks for being on, bud.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I hope everyone enjoys the birds this winter.
Yes, sir. Talk again soon. Thanks again to Chris for joining us. We'll have to have him back. He's an absolute wealth of knowledge about waterfowl and waterfowl hunting. Next, we hit what I would say is our first duck migration forecast that has some movement based on weather. So please stick with us.
Look, folks, the Farmland Group across the Mid-South is your one-stop shop for real estate brokerage, consulting, management, lending, and appraisals. If you own land or you want land, the Farmland Group is where it's at. With over $500 million in farm sales and growing, Gwynn and Shelby Smith have you covered. Look, if you're thinking about buying or selling, contact the Farmland Group to access their full suite of services. If you already own property and want to build equity and value, the Farmland Group gets it done. If you're looking to purchase a new property, well, they get that done too, and they have access to some of the best lending available. Looking to sell? Get it appraised with the Farmland Group affiliated appraiser. But let's be clear for our listenership too. They also offer farm and hunt property management to create places that attract more ducks and more bucks. Who doesn't want that? More ducks and more bucks. Let the Farmland Group build value into your property. Find them today at farmlg.com. That's farmlg.com. You're not going to be disappointed. Contact Shelby Smith today at farmlg.com and let him know that the Foul Weather Podcast sent you their way.
Alrighty, let's jump into that forecast and start in the west. Alaska is looking really good for mallard and pintail movements this week into northern portions of the Pacific and Central Flyways. In fact, WSI values in and around the Klamath region of Oregon and central Alberta are great enough for us to predict pintail movements out of that region towards locales farther south, with most likely movements on Thursday and Friday. Best bet for that mallard movement out of the far north regions is mid to late week. So by the weekend, folks in the northern Pacific Flyway states should see a mallard movement in. This also will likely lead to a new push of mallards into the Canadian prairies, with best bet late in the week, but favorable winds more towards the weekend. On the east side of the Rockies, there's even some chance for wet snow in the coming week around Thursday. Farther east, it looks like pintail hanging in northern Manitoba and Ontario will have reasons to move this week. The WSI predicts movement of pintails that have remained farther north to date. So some fresh pintails should show up for those in northern states of the Mississippi and Atlantic flyways that have a lot of you with seasons open or just opening. What's hot this week should be the northern portions of just about every flyway for early migrating dabbling ducks, as temperatures push WSI values great enough for migration of green-winged teal, widgeon, gadwall, and shoveler, so we expect them to make reasonable movements south throughout much of the week, but again, best bets are later in the week for just about everywhere. Warning though, the weather generally moderates for everyone by Saturday and Sunday. So we'll push of ducks, but then maybe conditions that aren't great for making ducks move locally thereafter. So scout them, but give them a break unless you want to create stale ducks really quickly. We also haven't talked much about diving duck movements yet, but the timing is right for all flyways this week, with greatest likelihood of movement on that full moon of Thursday in areas with favorable north or northwest winds. This also might continue into the weekend just because of the wind conditions in your area locally that seem in some areas to favor more of a north or northwest wind kind of later on in the week. So that's kind of the day length and moon phase portion of the diving duck model. But the weather portion of the diving duck model predicts, that there will only be moderate increases in diving ducks, because right now it's, mostly about timing and not much about weather, because there really hasn't been weather that would push diving ducks south so far. Next week, we record from sunny North Dakota and provide you with your first long-term seasonal forecast. Will the weather come this winter to push those ducks into the southern portions of the flyways? Find out next week on the Foul Weather Podcast, the only science-based migration forecast available and the forecast to your next successful hunt. Thanks for listening, and as always, may your skies be filled and shoot straight, my friends.